What's up everyone, and welcome to Gear Talk. In this module, I'm going to of course be talking about some of my favorite gear. So this is some gear that might not be super typical that you'll find on set, but personally for me, this is gear I love utilizing on my productions for various reasons. So without further ado, let's dive on into the details here. So first and foremost, just want to talk about this Easy Rig kit and system here. So absolutely love utilizing this. Go ahead and throw it on real quick for you guys. And we'll play some B-roll footage from BTS of various productions where I've used this rig and system. So really great system for operating as a cinematographer. Just simply strap up like this, and I would attach my camera right here in front of me and be able to operate. The big benefit of having a system like this is the fact that it takes the camera weight, and rather than me having to hold it, all this weight in my elbows and shoulder and take all that pain and weight there all day, it distributes it to a lot stronger part of my body. So it puts it all here in my hips, in my back, and so I'm able to use that portion of my torso as well as my lower body, be that my glutes and my legs, to really support me and support the camera all day. So one, it's allowing you to have a lot better longevity as a cinematographer and operator, but it also gives you a lot more of a stabilized and smooth image when you're going for that handheld look. Kind of like I talked about earlier in different forms of stabilization in that module. If you missed the stabilization module, I highly recommend you check it out. You can learn a little bit more about this. Without further ado, let's kind of move on to the next piece of equipment. Another piece of gear that I absolutely love utilizing, and let's just go ahead and break down some of the different pieces of it here. So I'll kind of bring this to the center fold so you guys can see it as well. But there's a couple different things I really love on here. So number one, let's just talk about the light stand. Light stands are super cheap, but super useful. So these things can be anywhere from like $8 to $12 each. And they're really awesome because you can put so many different pieces of equipment on them, be that magic arms or a tube light or a director monitor just by itself, or a piece of audio equipment. There's a lot of different ways you can utilize a light stand. Additionally, there's plenty of times where we have used a light stand as a form of Hollywood. So when people say they want you to Hollywood, that means handheld a light. And one of the big benefits of having something like this is it allows you to really boom out. So I could really hold and extend here and get a lot further of a reach with this light stand than I would typically just going handheld with a light. Additionally, what I love on here is magic arm. And I've got some other variations of these as well. These are by iFootage. These are called the Spider Crab. I really love these because as you can see, you can lock in here, and these are great for attaching and holding different pieces of equipment and attachments on your camera. But what I really love about this one in particular, if you kind of come in close here, Christian, so as you can see here, if we want, we can go for a larger thread, and this naturally pushes down to a smaller thread port as well. So there's a lot of versatility with this one, and this guy just pops right out, super easy. Pops this out, and you just squeeze this right in, twist and turn, tighten it to whatever piece of device you're trying to attach, and you pop it right back in there and lock down. You're good to go. So absolutely love magic arms. These are absolutely fantastic for holding monitors, holding microphones, any kind of attachments you want on your camera, in front of your camera, etc. So great options as well. Now in memory, in regards to memory cards, I love using CFast or SSD cards. Now of course you can use a standard SD card, but especially when you're using cinema lines, it's really great to have a memory card like this because one, they read faster. I find they're more reliable, and they can hold way more memory than a typical SD can. So I absolutely love using CFast cards. Additionally, just looking at some other elements on here really quick. V-mount batteries, of course, V-mount batteries are absolutely phenomenal. Again, not used a ton with DSLR cameras, but if you start getting into cinema cameras, or just getting some other variation attachments and such for your productions, V-mounts are super beneficial. Rather than using a bunch of LPs or Canon batteries for your camera, you can power them with a V-mount. And how, you might ask, how can you power a Canon camera or Sony, for instance, DSLR with a V-mount? This battery is freaking huge. Well, you can use what's called a dummy battery. So this battery that's attached to the monitor right here, there's no power in this battery itself, but it is through this cord that is then attaching to the V-mount via D-tap that I am getting power from this V-mount for my monitor to power it on here for viewing. And so that is a fantastic attachment and piece of equipment as well, is having a dummy battery. So being able to attach to a V-mount and power some other source is really, really beneficial. You know, looking at this for an example, I'm powering my wireless monitoring system as well as my monitor via this V-mount battery. And that is again due to the fact that I have a dummy battery as well as this V-mount attachment. So this is a essentially, you know, NPF or LP kind of adjustment piece right here. So rather than using, again, smaller batteries to kind of charge this kit right here, I can use a V-mount battery. And so I'm gonna get a lot more usage out of this from a single battery. Additionally, we can look at just the director monitor and wireless system itself. Again, super useful, being able to see what is on my camera, what's in that image right there, but I can see it right from here. So rather than having to go constantly back and forth, make adjustments, check the camera, make adjustments, come back. No, don't have to do all that. I can see exactly from right here. I can communicate with my team. Additionally, this becomes super useful on set. If you're a cinematographer and you're working with a director or clientele, being able to give them a monitor to view makes them feel comfortable on set, allows them to get a little better creative control in the production process. So rather than going through a full take on a music video, right, filming for 4 minutes, then coming back, hearing your director's adjustments, they're able to watch it real time on the monitor and give you real time feedback rather than being hunched over your shoulder trying to watch over you and all of that and just super uncomfortable. So a lot of benefits to having something like this, as well as, you know, focus pooling, which is a whole nother topic to kind of talk about. But again, let's move on to some other gear. Looking at VHS here, so this is a handy cam. This is actually the first camera that I ever really shot with and made videos with. This is my dad's old camera. I used to steal this and make videos with this with my friends in the basement, and I still love using it. But again, being very intentional with it. So for me, this is oftentimes, most oftenly, honestly, used with music videos, and is to kind of create a very nostalgic kind of feel, very retro. And so I've used this in a couple music videos in the past, which you guys can kind of see with some of the B-roll overlaying here. But again, just another really fun, not so typical piece of equipment, but it's really, really great when used correctly. Now, another piece of equipment, I call this like the Swiss Army knife for filmmakers. So having something like this is super useful and beneficial on set, having a bunch of different variations of Allen keys and screws. So when you need to make adjustments to your camera, put it on a new attachment or put a base plate on the bottom or take a base plate off, you can do so without one, breaking your fingernails, or two, breaking or damaging the equipment. So this is a very, very useful piece of gear here as well. And oftentimes, honestly, there's points where it's just hard to get a screw or something fully tightened by hand. So having something like this rather than using a penny or a dime, super helpful. And moving on from there, we can look at this little toolkit here, if you will. This is almost like a fisherman's box or again like a toolkit you'd see for like home tools, but I love utilizing this to store in space, create space for my various accessories. So rather than having equipment just lying all over the place in my car, in my house, having no idea what to do with it, this is what I use for additional accessories that I'm not typically using every single day on set, but it contains things that could come up, that could be useful, that might come into play. So again, having other magic arms, having a boom pole holder, having some different cords for charging, as well as being able to transfer, additional gaff tape. Gaff tape is huge. That is one of my other pieces on here to talk about. So lots of awesome stuff in here. And again, I'm able to keep it all really well organized, all in this toolbox. So again, I think that's super beneficial, and I highly recommend something like this. As you continue to grow and scale, you're gonna continue to get more and more screws, more and more Allen wrenches, more and more cords. And so being able to find some way to keep it organized and together in a useful way is gonna be really, really helpful for you. Additionally, here we've got this Hollyland SolidComm headset. So being able to utilize these on set as well. Again, this is super beneficial for communication. So when we're often on set, we are in different rooms, different spaces at different times, or again, perhaps we're doing a music video, we've got a rock band, they're playing extremely loud music. I'm not gonna be able to hear what the director's saying to me 20 yards away. So again, it's gonna be a really, really big time waster if we spend a whole take for a song, and let's say it's 4 minutes, where I record and maybe the director didn't like anything I was capturing, right? But I didn't know. I didn't know because I couldn't hear anything he was saying. And so then we have to communicate, make those adjustments, and then try and get it right on the next take. But again, what if something comes up? What if there's something I'm missing? I'm not gonna be able to hear from him. So having this for direct communication and direct feedback with your entire camera department, with the director, with the clientele is super beneficial and useful on set. Again, guys, communication is key. Next, let's look at fog or hazer. Quite plain and simple, again, being able to add haze or fog into the scene creates more texture, more atmosphere. When you get to those particles, you're able to create really cool things like light rays or just create more texture and depth in the space. So again, a super useful piece of equipment. Gaff tape, gotta have gaff tape, always have to have gaff tape, guys. This is extremely, extremely important, not just as a cinematographer, but as a filmmaker. All the time you're gonna be making adjustments. You know, people always joke that duct tape can kind of fix anything. This is a filmmaker's version of duct tape because duct tape is dangerous. It can ruin walls, it can take off paint, it can damage equipment. And so rather than utilizing duct tape, we use gaff tape. Gaff tape is a great form of adhesive to, again, tape down and make marks for myself like we have here. So I know where to stand, or in order to tape up a piece of equipment that might be loose, various things like that. So gaff tape, again, super, super useful. Looking at this is a matte box, so this you would typically put on the front of your camera. Again, super useful and beneficial, especially when filming outdoors, because this is going to help block and control the amount of sunlight that might be directly coming into your lens or hitting your lens. And so being able to control that is going to prevent a lot of haze or kind of aberration that you might experience and see in your image if you did not have this when filming outdoors. Additionally, it can be used and useful indoors when dealing with light as well. So again, just being able to further block and control the amount of light coming into your image. With this particular version with Polar Pull as well, I have the options to slide in different filters, be that ND filters, Pro Mist filters, Blue Morphic filters, etc. And so having that as another option as well to get more creative and utilize tools to enhance my experience is always beneficial. Next, guys, I want to talk just briefly, I'm not going to pick it up, but I just want to mention Pelican cases, right? So having cases to protect your gear, super beneficial. I think that goes without saying. The real reason why we love Pelican cases is because of how much damage they can take without damaging what's inside. So if you're having a properly made Pelican case, you know, a lot of these are actually capable of being tossed in the water and actually not letting any water leak through. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing that, but understanding that Pelican cases are super beneficial in the sense that they are going to protect your equipment. So it's super useful to have those rather than just using a simple carrying case like this, for instance. You know, this is not an ideal case. This is not very weather sealed or reliable. However, this is not holding cinema glass or my cinema camera, and therefore, you know, it's not that much of a big deal. But again, when looking at expensive equipment, we really want to utilize Pelican cases, and there's a lot of great options out there online. Other kind of versions as well. You don't necessarily have to buy a Pelican case. Nanook cases, I have a Nanook case for my camera actually, and I love their cases as well. So those are other great options also. Now I just want to briefly talk about some creative options, right? So looking at filters. So this right here might be hard to read on there, but this is a polarizer. So a circular polarizer. So the real benefit of having something like this is it is going to allow you to work with shaded areas or shooting through glass, better yet. This is when I use it the most. So if I'm doing sequences with cars and I have a camera angle outside the car, but I want to see inside the car, or maybe I'm shooting through a window, this is really going to take out the reflections. So having a polarizer can be super beneficial for you in that sense as well. We also talked about variable ND filters. I'm not going to pull it out. We already talked about it earlier in some of our earlier modules, but having a variable ND filter or an ND filter in that nature of itself is super beneficial as well. Again, when we're outside, being able to control and bring down the amount of light that our camera is taking in without having to sacrifice things like our aperture, our shutter speed, etc., right? Like, it makes a big benefit and difference for us. And then just looking at some various different filters I have here from Cinpack. So shouts to them, great buddies. They've got some awesome filters here that you can utilize just to create some various effects. So just throwing this in front of the lens right there, we are creating some really cool kind of prism effects with these. So I'll kind of show you guys some others here, just throwing them really quick in front of the lens. So again, these are just ways to distort the image and kind of create new and unique looks. Again, I'm typically using these with music videos. Sometimes I'm using them with short films if I'm trying to make something a little experimental. Or again, maybe my talent is going through a specific sequence where things are crazy or distorted, etc. And so I really want to heighten that feeling, that experience. Again, like if they're on heroin and they're tripping out, using these filters and effects is going to really distort the image, and that's really going to help better push that feeling upon our audience. Looking at another filter here, we were looking at streaks. So being able to create streaks in the lights. So just some various filters and effects here, guys. Now there is more and more gear. I could go on and talk your heads off. And we'll do that in other sections. As again, guys, I'm gonna continue to be building on this platform and program, installing new episodes. So we'll have some additional gear episodes down the road, but for right now, I just wanna kind of load on you guys a couple different options that you can kind of look at. Again, these are not things that I'm using every single set all the time, but they are super beneficial tools and pieces of equipment that you should look into adding to your toolkit as well. Now let's head out to the next program.